Good morning, Backyard Kids. This month, we are starting a whole new month and we're going to be learning all about respect. Now, unfortunately, I'm sure that most of you have had a time when someone didn't respect you and they treated you poorly, and that didn't feel very good. But hopefully, you've also experienced times when people did show you respect, and that feels great. So, this month, we're going to learn more about how we can show respect to others. Now, what is respect? Well, it's showing others that they are important by what the things that we say and that we do. So in our story today, we're going to hear about how Jesus showed respect. Now, we've recently heard the stories about how Jesus was baptized and then how he left from that baptism and spent some time out in the desert where he was alone with God, and he was also tempted. And then at the end of those 40 days, he went out and began his ministry. Now, everywhere Jesus went, he would talk and he would preach, and people would flock to him. But it was not the people that you might expect that Jesus spent the most time with. People may have thought that they could have gotten more time with Jesus because they were rich or powerful, or they were leaders within the neighboring towns. But Jesus spent the most of his time with just ordinary, everyday people. And when it came time to choose the people that he would be closest to, his closest friends, his helpers, he did the same thing. And so this is how it happened. One morning, there was a group of fishermen out, and they had been fishing all night long, and they had had no luck. Now, these are guys that had been fishing all their lives. They kind of lived on the outskirts of society, and they weren't treated with respect. They were probably kind of left out. And this morning, like I said, they'd been fishing all night. They'd had no luck. And as they were getting ready to come into the shore, they realized that they weren't alone. Jesus was there on the shore. And very quickly, people gathered around. Like we said, everywhere Jesus went, crowds gathered. But instead of starting to talk to them, he got in the boat with Peter. And he asked Peter to row a ways out, and they did. And then he stood up and he preached for a while. And he talked to all the people there on the shore. And then, after a bit, he sat down and he asked Peter to row out further. And he said, "Go ahead and throw your nets out on this side of the boat." Well, I'm sure that these guys were kind of confused. After all, they knew they had been fishing all night long and had found nothing. But they'd heard of Jesus, and I'm sure that they sensed that he was someone different. He was important, someone that they should listen to, and so they did it. And of course, what happened? But their nets were filled so quickly, so full of fish, that it almost capsized the boat. By the time that they got the boat in and they had gotten all the fish gathered and ready to go home, these men knew without a doubt that Jesus was exactly who he said he was, that he was the Messiah, the Son of God, sent there to save all of us. And so when Jesus asked them to follow him, to come with them and be his helpers along this journey and in his ministry, they didn't hesitate, they went. And this was not the only example of a time when Jesus included those who were somewhat outcast. As Jesus continued to gather his disciples, his followers, and those closest friends, one of the next people that he met, that he asked to follow him, was also someone very unlikely. There was a man named Matthew who was a tax collector. And tax collectors were not popular people because they usually cheated the people that they took taxes from. See, they would take the taxes that people owed, and then they would add money to that and ask that from the people, and they would keep that extra for themselves. And the people knew they were being cheated, but they couldn't do anything about it. And so they hated these tax collectors. So you can be assured Matthew had probably no friends, if he had any at all. But this day, Jesus stopped, he walked right up to him, and he asked him to come follow him. And again, Matthew just felt he knew that Jesus was someone special. And so he got up and he left, and he did. And these decisions, as you have probably figured out, were not very popular with a lot of the leaders in the area, the people who thought that they really were important. And Jesus spoke to them, but he didn't spend any kind of special time with them, and that bothered them. But Jesus knew that all hearts are important. And that those people who have that longing and that need in their life for something were the people that he really needed to reach out to first. And so that's what he did. And guys, in that way, we can be like Jesus. And our bottom line for this week is just that, to include those who are left out.